This video is comprised of footage and still photos I took on a trip to Venezuela in the summer of 1999. At the time, I was working as an analyst at Warner Lambert in New Jersey, and I hadn't yet taken a real vacation in the year and a half I'd been working there, so I wanted to pack as much adventure as possible into this trip. I also wanted to play it completely by ear and make my itinerary as I go, so I would have complete freedom to take advantage of any unique opportunities I might encounter. I came into the country by plane from Dallas, Texas, to Caracas Ciudad Bolivar International Airport in Maiquetía, and the first glimpse of the country from the plane had me intrigued already, as the mountains surrounding the city were lit up with an array of inexplicable uneven lights. As we got even closer, it was apparent that the lights were emanating from a patchwork of makeshift dwellings, and that the less valuable mountainous terrain around the city was home to endless sprawling slums. This is not my photography, as I did not have my camera handy yet, but rather a photo from the Associated Press showing an example of the mountain shantytown as seen from a plane. We landed and I took a taxi to my first destination in Venezuela, Playa Macuto, or Macuto Beach, about 9 miles east of the airport along the Caribbean Sea. Pictured is the view from the balcony of my hotel, the Hotel Santiago, located directly across the street from the beach. My room was simple, and the view out my window was pretty limited, but the location was excellent, as I was able to walk along the beach and explore an abundance of places to eat and hang out, and even catch some live music at an open-air cantina. So what is this? This is Barcelona here?
Yeah. This is the capital.
That night I met a friendly expat named Stan while roaming about. Stan worked for an oil company and was returning to his home in Barcelona, Venezuela in the morning. He volunteered to drive me 215 miles further east along the coast, where we'd meet up with his friend and coworker Mike, with whom we could take a boat ride out on the sea.
And Stan? And Mike and Stan's family here? We'll move the camera over here for a minute.
On the pole arc here.
There we go. And the kids?
Grande parecía. Huh?
This is some footage along the ride from Barcelona to El Morro.
So where are we now? Are we in Puerto La Cruz or?
El Morro. El Morro.
El Morro. There's the beach right there.
And over there.
And over here.
El Morro de Barcelona is a wealthy beach neighborhood situated on a peninsula that extends northward from the main city of Barcelona into the Caribbean. It's also home to the marina where Mike's boat was anchored.
Earlier today it was probably packed. Yeah, it's almost 5 now. This is the way you want to go though. You go down this way, down this way.
It looks very cloudy, but it's actually must be at least 85 degrees out right now. This is Mike's boat here.
We had a little bit of a rough start, having to cut the anchor, which apparently got caught on something on the floor of the canal, but soon we were off.
he left the keys, it must be done.
Now we're out on Mike's boat here.
Right?
Gonna pick up Stan.
Did I see you cut that anchor line?
Yeah.
We then picked up Stan, who had gone to park the car while we had gotten the boat started.
So we're off here.
Yeah, it's probably caught up with some rocks. Something, man. I mean, big time. I went all the way around it. We could pull loose. Yeah.
So what are we on here? Is this the Caribbean or is this a lake or is this
Caribbean.
Caribbean. This is the Caribbean. All right.
This isn't the good side of the bay, though, man. Good side of the bay is over here. Sounds good. So far. See how it accelerates. That'd be the trick, huh? Got more power than that.
By boat, we went around the peninsula and then eventually headed east towards Puerto La Cruz.
So that there, we're coming up on Puerto La Cruz here.
Yeah. Si, senor.
Senor. A little bumpy ride today, but that's Rancheria.
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 In some parts of the bay, the water was choppy, and it was impossible to keep the camera steady, especially while attempting to zoom in on the coastline. But eventually, we headed to the shore to get a close-up of some of the sights.
Yeah. With those canvases. Right over here, yeah. Canopy. Big great hamburger in there. You get mushroom gravy, onions, anything you want on, really, can't you? Huge. Watch football game. Big old burgers.
That's the new mall they're building in there.
Now we're getting into the house. You'll see some boats in here. This is a dinghy compared to some of the boats in there, huh?
So this is the rich part of town here we're getting into.
Oh yeah, this is El Morro, more or less, really. Back of the Mari right there, the pink building. That's back of the Mari Hotel.
As we continued along the shore, the wealth on display in these Caribbean mansions, many with yachts parked outside, was in stark contrast to the mountainside slums I encountered on the previous day. The bay had a variety of structures, though, from mansions to hotels, shopping malls, and apartments.
Colorful side here, we have
Farmers Townhouse, whatever. This is the house I like over here. Brown and tan.
I think I've seen a house like this on Miami Vice.
Yeah. green dolphins, that's an ex-president in Venezuela.
I don't see the dolphins. Where are we talking about?
Right here, right straight in front of us now. That White House, black window.
That house was okay.
We just passed the home of former Venezuelan President Rafael Caldera. My trip was in June of 1999, and Hugo Chavez had just begun his tenure as president 4 months prior.
There's the mall.
Get some beer.
Is that where you're calling a banana boat?
No,
that is?
like this one, yeah.
Okay.
Except open. This guy's got his closed in. See if I can remember how to drive this. I need to scoot up there.
As we approached the marina to return the boat, we encountered some pelicans that were perched on the jetty. After we came to the shore, Stan dropped me off at a hotel in Puerto La Cruz, although both he and Mike had offered me a room. I wanted to do a little bit of exploring in town, though, and get an early start in the next part of my adventure.
Can I get to the marina?
Again, my room was small and simple, and had no view to speak of, but it was a perfect launching point to explore Puerto La Cruz by night, and then relax before heading southeast from the coast toward the Venezuelan rainforest.
This is Puerto La Cruz. And you can't see much out here. I guess these hotels don't have too much view. But actually outside about a block or so, there are all kinds of things going on tonight.
I left my camcorder to charge back in the hotel room and just took a disposable camera with me as I ventured out exploring. I met some interesting characters and had a fun evening. One guy I met in another outdoor cantina named Octavio made a living by weaving palm leaves into hats and other items to sell to tourists. He taught me how to make a rather intricate grasshopper from a single blade of a palm. I made 2 of them and I took them home as souvenirs. I gave the hat he gave me and one of the grasshoppers I made to my grandmother when I got home, and I kept the other grasshopper for myself as a memory. In the morning, I went to the bus station and waited for the next bus to Ciudad Bolivar, or Bolivar City, which would be my halfway point from the sea to my destination of Angel Falls. I waited a few hours, but my bus did not come. But while waiting, I met a girl named Beatriz, who was also attempting to get home from the university to her family in Ciudad Bolivar. After we gave up on the bus, Beatriz called up a fellow student named Herman who had a car, and Herman and another friend, Eduardo, met us at the station and drove us on a 185-mile journey across the Venezuelan countryside. That gave us all plenty of time to talk and get to know one another, and I enjoyed seeing the scenery along the way.
Herman? Santi? Eduardo.
After finding a place to stay in Ciudad Bolivar, I was tired and I turned in early, but not before purchasing a ticket on a small plane to take me the rest of the way to Canaima National Park, where Angel Falls is located. After waking up in the morning, I still had about 6 hours to explore Ciudad Bolivar before heading to the local airport.
We're in Ciudad Bolivar. Didn't think I was going to have any time here, but my plane is 6 hours late, they've informed me. So it looks like I'm going to get to see a little bit of the city after all. That's the bridge I drove over before. This is the Orinoco River. And I have a restaurant here and all, but it's not too crowded because it's 10 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday here. This is Plaza Bolivar in Ciudad Bolivar, the center of town. Bolivar gave them their independence from Spain. Typical street here. Really now, like Europe almost.
The historical part of my self-guided tour of the city, I walked around Plaza Bolivar y Catedral de Ciudad. There was a small but colorful cathedral, as well as several statues of important historical figures. The centerpiece of the plaza was a statue to Simón Bolívar, who led Venezuela to independence from Spain.
Okay.
I then had some lunch and tried a beet smoothie, which wasn't too bad, and I did some shopping. I got myself a nice wood plaque featuring an artistically carved rendition of a map of Venezuela. I also met an enthusiastic shopkeeper named Rosa, who wanted to play with my camera and photograph her friends.
¿Cómo se llama? ¿Cómo se llama? Rosa.
Para verme, yo me quiero ver.
Later that day, I arrived by a propeller plane to the local airport near Canaima National Park. It was a tiny airport with a short runway. The surrounding scenery was spectacular, as we were at the edge of the rainforest. I then hired a jeep-like vehicle to transport me from the airport out into the jungle, where I had a boat waiting to take me up the Caracas River.
of the river is Carrao River.
On the boat, I met Angel, who would be my guide for the next few days, including for my hike up to Angel Falls.
You know, this part here, before this was declared National Park in 1962, there were different tribes of indigenous in this region, like the Camaracotos, Arecuna, and Taurepan. Those are the names of the tribe that you had down here. And now, well, they have maybe a 50 or less than a 50% of the custom, culture, and tradition. Long time ago, well, the only part where you can find, they're not even wild. They have like 80-something% of the custom, culture, and tradition. It's very deep inside Amazon where you have the Yanomamis, Tiaroas. A long time ago, they used to use like natural medicine and medicine plants. So, just few families still use them, not all. So the termites, they used to use this when you used to suffer like with asthma, bronchitis, or when you had problems to breathe. They used to take the termites and mix them with a resin from a plant that have a very strong smell, like the eucalyptus and some leaf, and they used to mix all together and inhale the smell. And also they eat them because they have a lot of vitamin and protein. If you want to taste or you want to smell.
So there?
Oh yeah, there.
Yeah, good. Okay.
3 of them. Wow. 4.
Oh.
Ah.
Okay, you have to take a look because I'm not doing it twice, okay?
¿Cómo?
You know, when you cut yourself, they carry you to the hospital and they stitch you. So this here, they use this to stitch. You know, when you cut yourself, they Oh shit. Okay, so when you cut yourself, they go like this, so. So when it bites you like that, you see?
Ouch.
They,
Doesn't hurt?
do you want to try?
Oh my god.
So then they cut off the head and it stayed there and it closed wherever you cut yourself, and they use it to stitch.
After a short excursion to learn a bit about the park and the culture of the local indigenous people who once lived here, we continued up the Carrao. As we got further upstream, the water got choppier, at times what I consider rapids. The journey took several hours to get to the base camp. My camcorder would eventually no longer record due to the amount of moisture in the air, so I took out my disposable camera and took some snapshots of the scenery. The rocky outcrops you see are called tepuil and are the distinguishing features in this part of the Venezuelan rainforest.
There's one staying base 5.
The base camp consisted of an open-air structure with a series of hammocks to keep campers off the ground. This was footage from the next morning after I was well rested and ready to continue on the journey to Angel Falls. The video footage really didn't capture the amazing scenery visible from the camp, so here I include a few still shots, including one shot of the amazing tepuil across the river from the camp, and one shot of some wild parrots that I spotted.
Continuing on foot to the falls.
Next stop, the hike to Angel Falls.
And here's Angel Falls. I was actually all the way up there, but the camera didn't work on account of the moisture. So here I am from across the river here. I was actually pretty far up there. That's the whole jungle hike was about.
Here's a picture, a still shot I took of the falls. Angel Falls is the tallest waterfall in the world. Here's me posing in front of that waterfall. You could see my hair is totally drenched as I had just come down from the top. The guy you see in this third still shot was a hiker on vacation from Germany with his wife Marga. I can't remember his name, but I remember what happened the next morning at the camp. The guy was putting on his shoes and found there was a frog in one of them. It happened to be an extremely poisonous frog, and he had a severe reaction to its bite. Angel, I, and the boat captain carried him to the boat, and we rushed him back to the nearest hospital several hours downstream where he could be cared for. We sped down the rapids in a tiny motorboat and got him there safely, after which we returned back up the river to continue our hiking, including, ironically, hiking to Salto Sapo, or Frog Falls, where I was able to actually walk on a narrow rocky trail behind the waterfalls, where the air was so dense you could hardly breathe by the time you got to the other side. Due to humidity issues, there is no footage of Salto Sapo. But at the end of the hike, and after we got back to town near the airport, we met up with the German tourist who had recovered from his bite. The next leg of my trip was to the Orinoco Delta. I met a guy back in Ciudad Bolivar earlier in the week when I was purchasing my plane ticket who operated a horse ranch in Santa Barbara, Venezuela, who said he would love to have me as a guest. I picked the date a few days in advance, and he told me a kilometer post along a highway where I could meet him at a certain time in the evening, and he would escort me the rest of the way to his new guest house. The taxi driver that I hired to take me to the milepost from the rainforest thought for sure nobody would show up, but sure enough, he met me there and had dinner ready for me. He asked me if I preferred fish or steak. I chose steak, and he sat down and ate the fish with me while I ate the steak. There were tons of flying roaches that were relentless throughout the night, and if you used your hand to hold the blanket up over your face to block the roaches from landing on you, then your fingers just got covered in mosquito bites. But when the sun came up, the ranch was quite amazing, and we even rode horses before I continued on my way to explore the Orinoco Delta by boat.
We're on a different part of the jungle, which is the Delta of the Orinoco. Guide one. Well, my guide. I'm the only tourist there.
Mira, por aquí también hay.
No se ve bien. Allá, mira, estamos viendo. Por allá, tiene, están los palos allí. Está al lado allá. Mira de allá. Aquel negrito que se ve. Ajá, está moviendo. Mira que está sentado. Mira. Ajá. Va saliendo para acá. Ajá, mira de ahí. Derechito por aquí. Ajá. ¿Lo viste? Allá ve. Otra. Mira de allí, mira. Mira. Ah, sí, sí. Ajá. Mira, Mateo. Mira, mira.
Bien.
Vamos para allá. ¿Qué tienes que encontrar? Ya se bajó. Se metió para adentro. Mira que está, le monté para allá, en el palo. Ahí, está bien.
My guide was Juan, a member of a local indigenous tribe, who took me out first along a branch of the delta with some of his family members. We spotted monkeys, and he pointed out a few different species. His eye was much better than mine, and I hope I captured some of them on the video. We also spotted an anaconda. We stopped at the village where he lived, and he introduced me to his wife. I exchanged some of my personal items for beaded bracelets she was making. Their house was on stilts in the middle of the rainforest. There, we switched boats, and just me and Juan continued on a one-log canoe, and we fished for piranhas. My final footage from this trip is of Juan enjoying eating a slug that he had gathered from the bark of a local tree. I eventually made my way back to Caracas, where I spent my last evening. I had run out of disposable cameras, and I was warned about taking my camcorder out at night in the city due to pickpockets. Even without the camera, I was chased by a couple of pickpockets, but I snuck into a bar and stayed there for a while and met some more locals until the pickpockets eventually gave up on me. Downtown Caracas reminded me quite a bit of New York City with its tall buildings, although it seemed significantly more dangerous. When I got home, I learned my credit card had been cloned at the ATM there, but the credit union at my work refunded me the money taken from my account by the thieves. The image you see is a painting of the Tep Wheel near the base camp in Canaima that I painted a few weeks after my return when I had some free time.